Okay, guys, now let's go into the UV set. The UV menu and go through UV sets later. Um, just to refresh your memory here, what we've done is, right, you basically grab a particular shape of an object, then you lift off all of its coordinates, you drop it into a UV space. Let's take a look at how the actual UV space looks like, all right? So here's the UV editor. I'm going to dock this onto the side over here so that we have a sort of a split personality here. All right. Now, I'm going to hide, actually, I'm going to ignore all of these, and I'm going to create, actually, I'm going to use this cube. Now, notice the shape of this cube. Okay, I'm going to create a new one, actually, because I want to play around with it a little bit. Okay, now, obviously, there's a case to be made that this looks like a penis, but, you know, if you're 5 years old, you'll find it hilarious. Okay. So what are my options here? Well, first, let me just turn this checker box off. Actually, before I do that, I wanted to show you something here. Notice that if I grab these faces, right, and I scale them up, there will be new new things showing up. And in order to show that to you, let me just go ahead and use the wood as an example. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to assign the wood material here. And we go into our shaded view, shaded display, and we turn on the picture on and turn off this. Now we have our wood. Actually, forget about the wood for now. So notice that we've got a second grid here. Now these grids are infinite, like I told you. For our purposes, though, we want to use this U1 V1 space. Okay, so you want to make sure that so this is V, this is U. Right, it's vertical and horizontal. The reason we use UVs, by the way, not XY, is because XYZ has already been taken. So you got to use something else, and UV is, you know, vertical, and I really don't underline. I don't know what U stands for, but whatever. Maybe it's the opposite. I think no, actually, U is this way, V is this way, as denoted by these pictures here. Now, first of all, you'll notice that there is these square boxes, these checkers, and depending on the positioning of these shells here, these square boxes are going to have their own separate, you know, they're going to have a different view. So if I go ahead and grab this whole shell now, and I scale this down, notice that these squares get really big. And if I turn this off, you will notice as well that, you know, my texture resolution is ridiculously low, and I have really bad detail. Not to mention that this texture, the texture itself is very low resolution because it's like something like 500 by 600 or something like that. Not to mention, by the way, that you always usually want to keep the aspect ratio of your object sort of legitimate. So if we go and take a look here, currently, yeah, all of these things are squares. However, if I go ahead and do something like this, notice that I'm getting a stretching and a squishing of the texture. You want to sort of make sure that your UVs sort of kind of maintain the same close, obviously not realistic, like, I mean, not like 1-to-1 aspect ratio, because you're not going to have something as clear cut as a cube. But you want to have mostly, in general, you want to have your these squares to be actually the same aspect ratio so that they're not stretched. You want to see squares on your object, okay? If you see something like this, then you're doing something wrong. If you see something like this, then this is sort of okay, right? But if you do something like this, then it's really bad. So make sure that you adjust every time so that you have a set of squares. Now, another thing I have to mention here, by the way, is the fact that this is, by the way, called the textile density, meaning that this is a very high textile density. Notice how the texture starts to repeat itself, by the way. If I go ahead and turn this off now, you will notice that I'm starting to tile the texture, and you will see as I actually make this bigger and bigger, I get more and more tiles of my texture. This is done differently in Unreal. Like, the tiling bit is used as, like, you still do so. Look, it's done with coordinates. It's not done like this because this will actually take up a lot of space. As you can see, it takes up all these squares, and all these squares, they take up memory. That's not what you want, okay? So you try to stay confined within the U1 V1 space. It's not to say it's not possible to go further down and use that, but not only it's more expensive, but also requires a plugin that costs about $3,000 or $4,000 as of the date. It's called Granite. Feel free to look for it, but like, I mean, unless you're going to be making a full motion picture or something in Unreal, I really don't see the point in that. Or unless you're going to be making like seriously high definition AAA games, in which case I don't know what you're doing watching this video or these series, to be fair. Okay, and now that being said, I'm going to turn off this checker box here so that I can tell you one more thing, one important thing, and that is the fact that despite me having this object in in such a fashion, this is actually one of the many ways you can project these. Let me just turn this off as well. You can project this object. So currently it's in the shape of a T, right, or upside down T, or a penis. But it's entirely possible to have a different projection. So if I go ahead and say, let me just pop this off so we can take a look here and draw some parallels really before we actually reproject this. Now every operation, now I'm not going to forget about projections for now. We're going to go about these projections later. I just want to go through these modifications over here. Now first of all, this is, like I said, in 2018, all of this, it will probably still be present, but all of this will be gone. It'll be integrated in the modeling toolkit, in the right mouse button menu. That's not to say that you still can't do stuff, right? But it will be a much more integrated functionality, because right now it's sort of like a separate editor and there's not a lot of symmetry on it. We do have issues, but as of this date, your shift and control and stuff still works. So if I were to go ahead and right click, I can, the same thing applies here. You got your selection abilities, you got your tools, right? You can, all of these abilities here, like the lattice tool, the smudge tool, the move tool, it's a lot like your Photoshop, although much weaker. So all of these tools over here, by the way, I'm not on image, right? Image is the display stuff. Everything you see over here, it's like in the Maya, right? Everything you see over here is essentially the same as everything you see here and here. The only difference is that here you will see these projections from the create menu, whereas you won't see these over here, because these are just modifying, how to modify the things. Although you can have these sets here that are available to you, like unpin all, invert, pin, unitize, all that jazz. So what do these things do? Well, these are basically tools that allow you to manipulate your objects. Now if we go through, let's just finish our going through our marking menu. So control is always your selection as usual, right? Control anytime you hold down control and right mouse button, you work with selection, right? Whatever you've selected, okay? With control and shift, it's whatever you're about to select. So symmetry, different symmetries, different selection constraints, right? So control whatever you've already selected, control shift what you're about to select. This applies obviously to throughout Maya. You probably already know that, but I just feel like it has to be repeated. And then obviously you got the right mouse button, which is a full contextual menu. I'm not going to go through these here because these are the same things. Like you could use them here as well, but it's a little bit like it's not very comfortable working with this, because sometimes it's just easier to just click a button, because you got to drill down in menus, right? The moment you got to start drilling down the menus, sometimes depends on what you're doing. Okay, it depends on your workflow, it depends on you. You got loads of options. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look over here in the UV editor first. What do we have? Now these are the selections here. You've got the shortest edge path. You've got the you got the UV shell tools. You got like these are all, you can ignore them. You don't need them. If you go ahead and select this, it's like these vertices, and there's your edge, right? I don't know who would need, I suppose if you need like to select this one and then this one, and you grab like this edge, I suppose it's useful in the manner that if you decide to sew these together, right, and be like, yeah, okay, so we're gonna sew them together, but then look what happens, right? This is much like being a like having a sewing machine, actually, because this is what you're doing. You're making clothes for your object. So maybe this is not the best idea to be sewing these together, but let's say we have this one and this one, right? And we sew them together, and look what happens. Disaster, right? Total anarchy. Another setup here obviously is the UV lattice tool, which allows you to basically lattice things the same way. You've already seen this before, right? You grab this and you start latticing things. Much like soft select, I believe soft select is available in this version of Maya. Yeah, soft select is available, so you know it's like very similar in terms of your in terms of function, but then again the lattice is a little bit more in control of whatever you're doing, right? Then you've got this, which is basically a move UV shell tool, which you don't really need because it's like just pressing W. You know, not a big deal. And then you've got the tweak UV tool, which I find completely useless, which allows you to basically tweak UVs. It's as if you're holding down the tilde key, which I believe still works as well. So if I go ahead and deselect this using the tilde key, I should be able to, oh no. Okay, so the tweak mode does not work here. You need to actually select it here. I believe a lot of these things that I'm talking about right now will be deprecated and will be more unified will work in line with Maya more straightforward. So like the tilde key, the tweak mode, these things will work. So I suspect they will be more streamlined within 2018. I just don't know how long my Autodesk is going to take to actually release their freaking thing. So it might turn out that I might explain to you in this UV editor, you know, how this works, and then when we're about to finish our project here, so when we're about to export to our game engine and start actually making our game, maybe I will do the UVs in the new one. But then again, I don't know how the new one will work. I don't know. Like, the only thing I know for the new one is that this stuff is going to be gone. Okay, first of all, this is ridiculous. I mean, look at the amount of shit they've got here, right? Not only this, you've got the same amount of stuff here, and then you've got the right mouse button, right? So there's a bunch of things that they probably rightfully so will cut out. Okay, next we've got the tools. Now this is a toolbar, which is basically the same as this one here, right? I believe most of these are tools, exactly. In fact, they're almost exactly the same in terms of pictures. So if we take a look here, we've got the unfold tool, which allows you to unfold UVs. So if I go ahead and warp some of these UVs with a lattice tool, with a lattice tool, and just warp them around and just do something stupid, be like, yeah, I'm doing something fancy, yeah, I'm UVing, yeah. So I've just done something that completely ruined my UVs. Right, and let's say like I cannot actually reverse it. It's irreversible. So I can go ahead and try to unfold this again. You know, with the tool, sort of fine. But then, you know, why would you do this? Because you got a full unfolding session here. Like you can actually unfold the UVs. If you just go ahead and, you know, select the face type. Just select the face. The whole shell actually, and just unfold it, right? Or you can actually go ahead and unfold it over here. Notice that there's this is like a macro thing where it folds the whole setup, whereas these are tools where you basically show it where you want to do stuff. Obviously there's others, such as you can optimize it, such as if you had too many shells. Let's say I go ahead and grab these 3 shells, right? And I decide to divide them, to separate them. Right, this means that every shell from now on is going to be its own thing. If I grab this, move this around, move this around, move this around, right? Now, obviously, I've created a disbalance and imbalance in my object because it's like wearing, you know, it's like having a 21st century jeans, right? You got holes everywhere. It doesn't work. It's useless. But you know, like all the losers think it's hip and cool, but in reality it looks ridiculous, and that's exactly what we've got here. Now we obviously can sew this back together. So let's say I grab this, right, and let's say I go into the edge mode and I want to see which edges they share. So there we go, we got 2 edges these things share. How can we sew them back together? Because that's where they belong, right? Very simple, you just move and sew. Now obviously I can sew these with my sew UVs tool, which allows me to sew these 2 together. If I go ahead and grab actual UVs and I sew them together, I can perhaps, I believe it is possible to sew these. Why am I not getting the desired sewing? Do I really need to do this the hard way? See, funny thing is, notice that you're moving the same vertex as well, because this is the same vertex over here. You're just moving its position for every bit of the shells, right? I just don't want you to, I don't want this to be confusing to you guys. Let me just go ahead and try to do this one more time. So if I go ahead and select my edges, right, so these are two edges, and I want to basically sew them together, not freeze them, sew them. I don't know, maybe, look, I don't really use this tool, so maybe I'm just an idiot and I can't figure out what the story is here. I believe I just figured out how to sew them together. Did I? No idea. Absolutely no idea. For some reason, I cannot get this to work. Okay, let's see. Can I get this to work with control? I suppose I have to select things with control or just grab things with control. It's the same thing, but no. So I forget about this. Maybe you'll figure it out. But usually I don't use this because it's much simpler to just select two objects and then just sew them together. Now in this case, you don't want to sew them like this. You want to move and sew, meaning that you will grab the shell, move it down, right? Position it, and then sew it together. And this is what Maya's going to do. If I go ahead and grab these two shells and I sew them together, this will be really bad, okay? Because I've grabbed the whole shell. But if I go ahead and grab just the edge and then I do this, then it will fit back down because I'm just moving the shell and I have a reference edge. Otherwise, I'm not really getting much done. The same thing here. For example, I can sew these two together. It is possible. It's just that it looks ridiculous. It's starting to look ridiculous. Notice the warp over here. This warp is something that you don't want to achieve because this is not a cube, right? And you don't want to do this. You want to follow the thing. So another way to do this is to cut the UVs. So I've just sewed this together. I also have the option of cutting this. Now I could use a tool, which is over here, and I just cut this, and it should be, there we go. Just drag and cut, and now I can sew. Okay, they have to be at the same. That's why it didn't work the first time. You have to be on the same. They have to have, like, you have to be touching. But if I go ahead and cut this now, obviously I could have done this with this command here, which is allowing me to actually go ahead and separate this whole thing like this. If I select this, exit the queue, and then I just do this, it will separate them, but not. It will just do this in such manner, right? So it will not move them. Another way to do this obviously would be to use the separate command, which we just did, and this will separate these two edges. What else we've got? We got the flips and all that, but let's go through the tools again. We've got the pull surface, we got the squish, the pinch surface. So these are basically like, it allows you to, it's like sculpting. Okay, it's like sculpting. Oh look, I actually had them, forgot to uncut them. But these are like sculpting, and I really don't see, like, who would you would use this if you had a very dense polygon level wise, right? If you had a very dense object, then you would know. Like, for example, if I go ahead now and I just introduce a couple of these edges here, right? I'm just doing this randomly. Notice that I've got you know, I'm starting to have a lot of vertices here, and this is starting to get a little bit crowded, right? So in this case, I would like not to lose my mouse. How did I lose my mouse? How did my mouse get lost? Can you believe this, man? Always something happening in my. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, let's go back to shell. Select the shell. So now we got two shells, and like I said, now we've got a lot more stuff. Now we can use this, like I said, you could use this to just modify it a little bit. Obviously, you got all your fall offs, right? You can have surface volume, all of that jazz. Much like everything else, you know, you can have your other tools here, like you grab and pin UVs. Pin UVs is like freezing in the sculpting mode. So if I go ahead and pin some UVs, you will notice that this is actually does the same thing as the freezing bit in you know, in the other one. So you can have your fall off here as well, the same way. Now you could obviously go ahead and just go ahead and say, I'm going to grab this, right? Because currently we were smearing, but I'm going to grab these. I'm going to pull them out like this, right? and like this sort of creates this distortion, and then I'm going to grab and pinch them together, right? I'm going to pinch it all together, and I believe if you hold shift, you can straighten them out and relax them out a little bit. And that's obviously with every tool, because shift is always a relaxing operation, so you can straighten them out, okay? Then you've got the pin. I think you can reverse, I believe you can reverse the pins. So if I go ahead here, and I believe I can invert the pin, and now I'm actually working on this area over here. I can straighten this out, maybe do some modifications, and then sort of, by the way, with control you can rotate this. So control modifies your objects, and with control and shift you can actually move it, but without the whole setup here. So, you know, just experiment with shortcuts. These tools are useful when you, like, on low level operations, not on macro level operations, okay? Macro level operations, I believe if I can unpin all of them would be nice. There you go. So these are all the tools here. There's plenty of other things you could try to do, such as you can optimize the tool here. For example, if you look, this is gonna give you a little bit of a much more even spacing. Actually, this is what the shift does. It optimizes your object. I thought it was averaging it out, smoothing it, but in reality, I think this is what holding down shift does whenever you have any of these modifications. So if I go ahead and do this and I hold down shift, well, actually, if I do this and I hold down shift, for some reason I'm not getting my optimization thing. Maybe I need to be really drastic about this. I lost my ability to optimize things. Maybe I need to freeze something. Let's see what happens if I pin some UVs and then I go ahead and play around with this, right? Last tool, and I start grabbing. No, shift stopped working for me for some reason, right? Shift stopped working for me for some reason. I actually thought that this would have been I suspect in 2018 this will be rectified. You know, maybe it has to do something. Let me toggle the shelf borders. Actually would be nice if I could see them. And I'm gonna unpin all. So as you can see, you definitely got loads of options here when it comes to playing with this. Obviously, once you're done, you can try to unfold this and see what happens. Now, if I unfold this, this will sort of try to, you know, unfold it correctly. But there's obviously another way. Here, the control works out for me as well, just fine in this case. Sort of, as you can see, I got loads of problems. I can always try to unfold it correctly. So if I go ahead and select this and just unfold this using this, then it's going to be a lot more appropriate. That's why I never really figured out why would you want to have a tool that unfolds. Obviously, you got a symmetry thing, which allows you to symmetrize stuff. But this asks you for a symmetry axis, which we actually don't have. We lack a symmetry axis. And even if I select something, this is really not going to help my case. Because if I go ahead and select this, it will symmetrize according to this. So it's, you know, it's not pretty. Okay, so leave it be for now. Obviously, you got your symmetry here, so you can work with symmetry on or off if you so desire. Plenty of options, really. What else? You've got all the flips and the flops. So if I go ahead and just why am I with? No, I don't want to do that. I don't even know what that is. Oh Jesus, I'm still in the freaking tool here. My bad. So we don't want to deal with the symmetrize just yet. Now you've got all the different flips. Actually, I want to focus in on something here really quick. If I go ahead and select them faces, right? Actually, I'm going to select this shell. If I select this shell, notice that currently, like, ignore the fact that it's positioned in a weird way, right? Ignore the weird rotation. So if I select this shell, and I go ahead over here, I need to extend this a little bit, I believe, because we are running out of space. Come on, boy. There's actually a bunch of stuff here on the side. That you might figure out why they're actually taking their time with this. Sorry, why they are replacing this, because look at the clutter over here, right? So if we go ahead here and take a look at what we've got. Now, my options here are to flip this, right? I'm flipping this, which is working fine. I can flip this in another direction as well, which is also, these are all orientations. But notice that this changes the position of my UV. I can rotate this, right? This changes the position of the UV. However, this button over here does not. Actually, it would be nice if I selected the whole set and then maybe a face. Let me just grab these faces, for example, over here. Like so. So I've grabbed these faces, right? And then I just rotate them. Why does it only select this one face? What's wrong with you, boy? Select these faces, right? And then rotate them. For some reason, it's like it's in love with this one edge for some reason. Look, basically what this does is it doesn't rotate the whole mesh. It just rotates. It doesn't rotate the whole shell. It simply rotates your. Oh, I have a duplicate. Did I just cut them off? Oh, geez, I cut them open just now. Okay, let's just use this again as an example. So notice that I am rotating. Why are you selecting? Why am I getting new? Oh, right, okay, sorry. This is doing it for faces, but obviously it has to cut them out so that you know the alignment is appropriate. Unfortunately, I actually thought that it was possible to use the whole mesh here, the whole shell. So if I rotate this, yeah, it'll grab a random guy. But the thing is, right, you can actually rotate this thing without, notice that I'm rotating the picture here, but I'm not rotating my, object, which is very nice, okay? So if I scale this up, and you will see what I mean. If I go ahead and rotate this, see how I'm rotating this, but I'm not actually rotating it in such a way that I'm using my rotation tool, which, you know, in the fashion of this cube, it doesn't really matter. But once you actually go ahead and talk about, once you have something more complicated, things become important really quick. By the way, you can flip them as well if you want, but it wouldn't really matter in this case, right? It's the same, well, sort of the same texture. It's not seamless though. So anyway, what else did I miss? We can talk about all these straighten UVs and map UVs, borders. These are basically tools. All these modifiers: align, flip. You can align a particular object, you know, on a particular axis, like a minimum or maximum value. They're actually available to you here. For some reason, I never got them to work. Like if I select this and I try to align this, never worked for me. Maybe I just don't know how to use it. But no matter when, anytime I tried to do any of these alignments, for me, they never worked. Oh, sorry, I should not have unfolded this. Crap. Yeah, I just unfolded I just unfolded like a point. So if we go ahead and select this, for example, now, right, and you've got all these options such as flips, grids. You can like delete the grid layout, the rectangles, normalize, optimize, unfold. The layout bit actually is very nice because it basically allows you to lay out the whole setup. So if I go ahead and just do this, look how many pieces I've got. If I lay this out now, it will clam them together as well as possible. Now, if I optimize this, it will have some problems because currently this is a very small, weird type. You don't want to have cuts within cuts within cuts, especially in such a different way. Obviously, you can unfold them if you want again, and then lay them out. But these are basically the same things. The warp image, I wouldn't bother with this because you need 2 UV sets, and that is another story entirely. Basically, if you go ahead and try to unitize things, this basically goes into like the 0 to 1 space. So anything you have here becomes the same. Notice how it's tiled, right? So this is like, you don't want that, right? I really don't know why would you want to use this, especially considering that, oh, you can create a new UV set. Maybe that's why, like a unitized UV set. And obviously you can have this as, let's say, if you want more definition on these faces over here, right? If you want to have more definition on these faces over here, you basically go ahead and unitize them in another UV set. So this can take like a whole other 0 to 1 space. That's the way I see this being used. Obviously, you can still rotate things around, right? You can like rotate a particular vertex, like basically it's like having your, because you don't have the choice here, right? If I go ahead and grab this and I try to move this, I actually can move my pivot. And instead of doing this, and I want to pivot, I want to move my pivot to a particular vertex, let's say this one, and then I want to rotate. And if I actually go ahead and do this, right, and now I can rotate this along this thing. Difference is that this allows you to do the same thing without repositioning your vertex. So if I rotate this, I want to rotate this around this vertex, then I will rotate it around this vertex. Well, obviously I need to select the face, and then go on, then rotate. Jesus Christ. Okay, well, you get the idea, right? You basically, you can rotate a face around another vertex. Oh, why can I not select it? I missed it again. Come on, dude. Face, rotate, this. Okay, forget about it. The point is that you've got loads of tools, all right? Just play around with these. It's much like the modeling toolkit. And look, I'm not really good with UVs because most of the time I prefer to let Maya do the unwrapping, and usually it's fine enough unless I got something really complicated. In that case, I rarely go into the UVs and start like displacing them, okay? Things like these are actually a very rare occurrence. Maybe I should just turn off the borders as well, because that's not what you want to have this here. Not to mention that you've got all these automatics like optimize, unfold, layout. Most of these things will get your stuff done as it is, right? You've got your different merges and UVs, like you can cut the UV edges again, like I've already done, like when you select them, select a particular set here and just cut along them, let's say, right? And that's a cut, and you've got different cuts over here. You've got the same functionality on the toolkit here. You can sew them together, split them. And now 3D grab tool, I've never actually used that. I don't know what that does. So maybe if I grab this and just, all right, okay. So this is what the 3D grab tool does. You might want to do this. I really don't know why though. I mean, it's sort of okay, I suppose. I mean, if you lower it down, it is symmetrical as well. Somehow I have my symmetry on here, which I suppose is nice. And you can actually sculpt. Wow, this is actually considered as sculpting. Oh, okay, right. It was part of the sculpting toolkit. I totally forgot about this one as well. But as you can see, there's like any number of possibilities to play with. Now, I think this is a bit ridiculous. It's nice. You can have a texture set, for example. You can have a particular set. If you go here and go UV set editor, you just create a new set, and then you update with the set, right? And you can select your particular set over here from the drop down. But as it is right now, obviously this looks really bad. So what are my options? Well, I can try to unfold all of these, but they're cut. Remember, I just cut all of them UVs, so that doesn't really help my case. And really, in this situation, I would probably be better off if I just reprojected all of this stuff. Okay, because this is a disaster. And yeah, I could maybe just unfold everything and try. Let's see what happens if I unfold everything. What if I unfold it? Let's see. Boom. Well, actually, this looks better than I expected. You know, it sort of fits them together, but then my alignment is garbage, right? And this is a case where you usually want to have your UVs done and then fit your texture towards your UVs rather than fitting your UVs towards the texture. Okay, because the texture, you can rotate the image itself, you know, right? Especially in Painter, where you have complete control of how you're texturing. Your main concern, okay, your main concern here is to have your texel density right, okay, is to have your orientation correct, right? So in this case, it's not upside down like this. For example, if you take a look here, notice that, I mean, it's upside down. So I would have to flip this. So I have to either flip this upside down like this, right? Or I would have to flip this to just rotate this either like so. Well, actually, I have too many faces. Either like so, right? Which I just flipped it in. Or maybe just have a particular angle at which I want to have this work for me, right? So if I go ahead and grab this whole shell and I rotate this at a particular angle and try to somehow fit everything in. Another option would be, of course, to sew it all together. So let's say what happens is, what if I sew it all together? Where's my sew? So there we go, move and sew, and it turns into this thing. And then if I try to unfold this, it will not look good, right? Afterwards, you've got you know, these functions are like global. So if you select this thing and you just try to, like, this will all try to optimize it, right? You've got all of your settings here, but like you can try this as much as you want, but at the end of the day, you need to just reproject this, recut it, or do something with this, because this is obviously creating problems. Now, you've got these other sets. For example, you can be isolating stuff, right? Like, these are basically your isolations, and you can add stuff to it or remove stuff to it, right? But you gotta have some seriously complicated UVs if you're gonna isolate them. Okay, and I believe there was actually a shortcut for this. You can, no, okay, I'm pretty sure in 2018 you will be able to use the same shortcuts available to you in the viewport in the UV editor here, because all of this is going to be gone. Half of these are redundant anyway, you know. So this is a very old editor. The new 2018 is it's an entire overhaul of the whole system. So I don't expect, I wouldn't, if I were you, I wouldn't just do this. I just grab the 2018 or wait for 2018. But I just want you to get the principles of this, and then once I you know, you can play around with these tools, because these tools are still going to be there. It's just not going to be all over the place, right? They're going to be centralized, which is very nice. Right, that being said, all these tools, we can forget about them for now, right? By the way, these are all your render controls. So you've got your grid. You can turn off your grid. You can turn off these checkerboards, right? You've got your texture borders, which I activated or deactivated in this case. If I, you know, if you don't want them, the snapping bit, and oh yeah, one more thing, the freaking distortion. I forgot about the distortion. Okay, so here's the thing, right? First of all, let me just take this off. First of all, this display over here allows you to see which of these UVs are overlapping, and as you can see, quite a lot of them are overlapping. Everything that is purple, right? The only thing that is blue here is this, right? The only thing that doesn't overlap is blue. Anything behind it is red, and this stuff is purple. So as you can see, this is like, you know, if we were to look at this in 3D space, this would look like some kind of a sphere, like a very sad sphere. Okay, not to mention the fact that, I mean, look at our, I mean, this actually might look, oh wow, believe it or not, this actually looks a lot more natural than, I mean, except for this part maybe, but this looks pretty good. I mean, it would look like some kind of a wooden cube carved out of wood. It doesn't look that good from some sides, though. I mean, it's a strange coincidence that a couple of sides turned out pretty well. But anyway, but then that's because they're overlapping. So one side is the same as the other. So it's not a big surprise there. What I wanted to say is that there's also this option here to turn this on, right? Obviously, you've got your little, you can choose which channels you want to see. You can, you know, display your alpha channel if you have an alpha channel, and obviously you can adjust the brightness of the display and your, like the brightness and the exposure. No, this is the contrast. My bad. This is the brightness or / exposure. Obviously, you've got all your drop downs here. Look, this is like next level stuff that you don't need. You'll be doing the texturing in Painter, so here, you should only focus on making your UVs workable. Now let's take a look at the distortion map, and this is what it is, right? The distortion map, that is sad. So what this shows, right, is essentially anywhere that you have white, that's your actual resolution. If we go ahead and take a look at the at this, the distortion map basically shows you how bad you fucked it up. Okay, if we take a look here, there's definitely distortion here, and not with the fact that that, you know, not only because my aspect ratio is shit, but also because I have this stretching and the stretching of the texture and squashing of the texture as well is happening here, right? So this is what it shows you. it's a little bit easier to read than the checkerboard box, I'd say, because it only shows you a gradient and allows you to use then, these different tools. That's when you use the tools to relax a couple of bit points, right? You can grab and pinch this and just move it around, assuming obviously you select the shell first. So select the shell, right? And then you go ahead and just start grabbing and pinching and moving these things around, and maybe you will get some better distribution. Now, obviously, in my situation, I look how I'm changing the distortion here. You want to be basically as white as possible. Now, obviously, I really don't know what I'm doing here right now, because I don't know which side I'm working on. I have to be cutting these, and then basically you need to cut them and then unfold them again to see what's going on. I'm just doing this for the the fast and dirty way. So notice as I'm basically manipulating all these vertices here, all these UVs, that I am changing the way the distortion is actually applied. Now, if you're some madman, okay, and this actually makes a lot of sense to you, then kudos to you, right? You can actually go ahead and try to work with this. But notice, as red means that it's, I believe, stretched. Blue means that it is squashed. So if I have something in the red, that means it's very stretched. Blue means it's very squashed. So you can always, actually, sorry, my bad. Maybe the opposite. I forget which one was which. You have to check. I think that's what it was. Red is very stretched and blue is very squashed. Okay. Now in this case, this is obviously not ideal. So let's say I'm happy with whatever I've done here, and then I try to, I don't know, unfold them in in some bizarre fashion. Maybe do something like this, or just relax them. I don't know what I'm doing right now, actually, and neither does Maya, by the way, because by the looks of it, oh Jesus Christ. Okay, talk about unfolding. So these are my UVs. If you take a look at them here, these are my UVs, and my wow. Well, this is just something, right? Maybe if I go ahead and even further down, right? Unfold them. Okay, this is turning into a joke at this point, right? So forget about this for now. As you can see, if we go ahead and take a look at the texture now, by the way. Notice that there's almost nothing here because we're using like a pixel, like 2 pixels out of the whole texture map. If we take a look at the picture here, where did the picture go? Take a look at the picture here. That's what we're using. That's how much of our texture we're using. So this is ridiculous. Now you could say, well, all you got to do is just scale it up and scale it up and scale it up. And there you go. There you've got it, right? Well, yeah, but this is a disaster. Okay, so you don't want to do any of this stuff, and hopefully if you go ahead and select this object. Now, how do we rectify this? Well, we create a new UV set. How do we create a new UV set? We need to project. Remember, this is what we're doing. We grab our object and then we just open it up, and then we slam it in onto whatever it is we're doing. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create a new UV set. Now, what are our options when it comes to UV sets? By the way, you also have these here where you can bake stuff, which you don't want to be baking, and like this is for baking things, right? And then you've got your copies and your like if you got UV colors and all that jazz, right? And these are just nudges, like offsets. Okay, now back to what I was talking about. So let's just hide this for a moment, and let's create a new UV set. Actually, no, not hide it. No, you don't want to hide it. Well, unless it wants to hide on its own. So we'll use this for a second, right? I'll grab this whole setup here. Where's my UV set? Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. Let me just select the shell here real quick and just scale it down. Or maybe just delete the damn thing, but let's just keep it there for reference. So this is what I've got currently. It looks like a corpse. And nothing I can do to it will save it, right? I can go ahead and try to like unfold this or just just do something with it, but it's not gonna happen because I've sewn it together. I need to cut somewhere. Okay, that being said, it is also possible, by the way, to cut in the viewport, but that we're actually going to do this at the end of this video, right? So let's go ahead and create a projection, right? You notice, by the way, there's also this auto seams, which allows you to cut like things in the viewport. So if I go ahead and try to cut this, please. Oh, Jesus Christ, do I really need to go into my... right? So I just cut this, I believe. Haven't used this, it's a new feature, but what if I unfold now? Yeah, so it did cut it. Well, that's nice. So it did cut it, but you know, this is obviously not ideal as well. So we need a new projection, okay? Notice, by the way, that this thing is blue now because there's no overlap. And if we take a look at the displacement map, which is hidden a long way from me, I'm gonna hide these suckers here with alignment because I can't align them for some reason. Notice now it's a lot better. It's wider. Now there's a little bit of a squishing here, but that's about it. Right, back on topic. So I need a new set. And in order to do that, I'm going to project a cylinder. Let's try a cylinder. Let's see what happens with a cylinder. So if I grab this object now, and I project a... We could try camera-based projection, see what happens. I don't know. I mean, this doesn't look too good to me. Now, obviously, this means that I'm going to have to cut them, right? Because I can see the whole thing through. I'm basically projecting right now. But what I really want is a box, right? Such as this. I want to do this. I don't want to be looking at it, right, and just project from camera. Obviously, you can grab a cylinder, and maybe, you know, you got all these controls. You can actually go ahead and move it around from your particular perspective, basically around the axis here. Or you could maybe complete your cylinder, right? This is a complete cylinder here. I believe you can actually also scale it. There we go. So there's plenty of options here, really, when it comes to that, but... Look, cylinders are not ideal for cubes because your projection is not going to look too good. Okay, this is how it looks like right now. So cylinder is not going to get the job done. Another option would be to go ahead and create a spherical one, right? And this is the same thing as a sphere. Now currently the projection is smaller than the actual cube, so we need to make it bigger so that we can see what we're doing mainly. And then we can maybe cover it all together and close it. So currently this is what a sphere sees. And obviously we can go ahead and squish it together or extend it, like depending on what it is you're doing. This is basically like a NURBS curve. In fact, it's exactly like the NURBS curve. And you can have all your, you know, you can rotate this around and see what happens. Maybe grab a couple of these things. But another option would be obviously to have a contour stretch. And that is, look, okay, I'm going to demonstrate how the contour stretch works, but that's just about it, all right? So if I go ahead and grab this, if I go ahead and make another polycube, right, and I just pump up the subdivisions on it, okay, this is obviously ridiculous, so that's not what you want, but I simply want to show you something. Now notice that obviously this is created the default UVs for it, which are fine. These UVs are good actually, but it is possible to sew them together. For example, have a straight line or something. So let's see what we've got here. We want to select the face. So in this these four faces, right? I want these four faces to be wooden. So what's going to happen if I assign these faces the wood material? Well, it definitely does not conform to whatever, right? So I need to actually grab these two faces, maybe cut them out, scale them up, right? There's plenty of ways of doing this. But if I go ahead and select these, right, and I say contour stretch, this basically means that this thing is going to grab the contour of whatever I've selected and then create a UV based on that. And notice that it's done exactly what I just said. It cut these out and it just spread them around to maximize the usefulness of this material, of this texture, okay? So this is what contour stretch does. Now I'm going to delete this. Obviously we don't need this. Go back to our previous example, the tortured cube, we can call it the tortured cube because it is indeed tortured at this stage. We need to go ahead and create a planar projection. This is probably the best situation here because a planar projection is going to give us something. It's as if like a camera from the side. So here we're looking at it and we can have a different planar projection. So depending on what we're looking at, we can actually modify this, okay? However, like I said, this is still not really good because I can see all the way through the damn thing, but not over the damn thing, right? So this is not really helping me out. What I need to do is use the best plane texturing tool or the automatic tool. So if I use the automatic tool, this is automatically going to go ahead and create me 6 planes which is like a planar projection from each side, and this has created six shells over here, right? Now you can obviously move all of that. You can see that it changes depending what you do. You can rotate this around, right? You can basically all the transform controls are applied to this as well. You can even scale it up and down, I believe. My bad. Oh, if I can grab this, you can even scale this up and down if you so desire, right? But I'm not going to do any of that because there's also another option, which is to use the automatic one. Sorry, not the automatic one, but the best plane tool. So if we go, say we want to have these faces and then, or maybe these faces actually. Actually, what if I want all faces? So, no. What if I want all faces, right? Okay, I'm doing this weirdly, but okay, let's say I'm just gonna exit this. I'm gonna do this again. So if I go ahead, best plane tool, and I select these faces here. All right, whatever, I've done a mistake, but whatever. Let's just press enter and see what happens. So if you see here, we've got our shell, and this is what we just seen. We just selected. Unfortunately for us, we only have 1 and 2 that are being applied. The other ones are just not even, these are not even considered in our object. Okay, so we need to cut this open and maybe see what happens. Because if I cut this open right now, actually, let's go ahead and create a new projection like automatic. Actually, no, let me do this the easiest way. And I'm actually going to do this with the bonus tools. Because, look, in 2018, this is going to be available in the default kit. But as it is right now, it's unfortunately only available in the bonus tools, which, you know, you should download anyway. Okay, so you've got the Auto Unwrap UV tool. So if I go ahead and auto unwrap a UV tool, and we've got all these settings here, right? We've got the Unfold 3D, Legacy Unfold, which you don't want, Legacy Unfold with Symmetry Anchorist. Look, you don't want anything that's Legacy. You don't want that, okay? And uniform faces might come in handy, especially you know, when you have something that is in equal size, like a cube. You want to have every face to have the same amount of size. Unfold 3D is probably the best you should keep going on, though. No symmetry axis, so it doesn't matter. UV shell layout, which is what you want. You want either a proportional scale, so if you have a big face and a small face, you want the UV to have a big shell and a small shell instead of it being a uniform and all that. So let's just say we enter the tool and we close. Okay, so let's select the mesh. Let's select the mesh and then click continue. This is our mesh. We've got everything we need. So how are we going to cut this? Well, let's see. Oh, I don't know. Pretty fine edges. Let's say this edge and this edge and this edge and this edge, and add the borders here, and then this edge and this edge. Actually, I'm going to select all of these edges so that we can have 6 squares again. Obviously, this is a lot more useful when you have something like a humanoid, right? I'm going to add these borders. I'm going to press continue. As you can see, now we have our shells. Sorry, our I basically have made our seams, right? So if I go ahead and grab this face, this shell, UV shell, and I grab this and I just move this around. Sorry, not this, but move this around over here. You will see that it does not look too good. That is because it is not unfolded. Now, if I go ahead and grab all of these, and I just unfold them, and then I lay them out and scale them down, this should have unfolded them, but it didn't for some strange reason. Oops. Okay, what's going to happen once I introduce an image onto this then? So I have two faces, one face basically, because everything is here. Yes, this is definitely not good. So we need to actually go ahead and work with this. I believe I'm missing a couple of shells here, which I never actually had a problem with this before. So take a look here what we've got. What if I select this bit here? I want to go into UVs and I want to select edges. So if I grab the edges, where are they? Oh, they're at the bottom. Oh my god, I wanted to get the borders done on that. Alright. Yeah, I screwed it up, but you get the general gist of it, alright? You basically go ahead and cut the UVs in real time. Obviously, you could go ahead and create a new projection and basically do the automatic bit here, right? And if I go ahead again and do this, and this is probably the best situation we can have here right now. But there's one more thing I wanted to show you, because not always you're going to be dealing with cubes. Sometimes you may be dealing with pipes, and that's actually a very real situation. So let's create a pipe really fast, really quick. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop a poly cylinder. I'm going to move it out, and let's use a I'm actually going to isolate this. Right, and then I'm gonna go and what was my shortcut for that? Shift S, Shift A, Shift A. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a curve. So let's just see here. Curve, curve, curve. Can I place this, please? Why am I not seeing my curves? Oh, because I've isolated them, of course. I've isolated my freaking object. So where's my curve? I should have a curve right now. Where is it? Why is it here? My curve is gone. I don't see my curve. Wow. Okay, where's my curve tools? Okay, let's use this. Placing. Why do I not see this? All right, let's just extrude along this thing, all right? So if I go ahead and select this and extrude and just use my local thingy, just move it up. What's wrong with this thing? I don't understand. I need to go ahead and select the faces, right? So you basically select the faces, and then you select the curve, and then you extrude. And there goes my curve, though I don't see my curve, so that's annoying. But whatever, look, let's just increase the divisions, and this is our pipe, okay? This looks like a pipe at least. Although it doesn't really. Right? I believe that's because my curve is shit. But let's take a look and focus over here, okay? So we have this object, and I'm probably going to delete the rest of this, but for some reason my curve is... I can move my curve, so the curve is available. It's just that somehow this curve is just invisible to me. Okay, and it's not even hidden, so... Oh god, I knew it was isolated. Oh god, I knew it was isolated. My bad, guys. I'm sorry. That was bad. Anyway, let's go back into our isolation mode and basically do what I wanted to do. So if we go ahead and take a look at the UVs now. Of course. Come on, man. Pop off. So take a look at the UVs, and there's literally nothing here. Okay? And that's not what you want. Because if I go ahead, there it is. If I go ahead and apply this surface right now, go ahead and apply the wood. Notice what's going on, what's happening. So we've got the wood here at the top, but then we've got serious issues all over the other, like basically the rest of the pipe. Not to mention that if we go ahead and turn this on, the stretching doesn't say that it's a problem, but if we go ahead and take a look at this, there's definitely an issue. Right, there's definitely an issue. I don't see a single V. I don't see this text here. Even if I grab these shells, right? If I grab these shells and I just rotate them, if I just rotate these, come on. There we go. If I rotate these, maybe I'll get a better distribution over here, but then I've got this massive stretching here. The funny thing is, it doesn't get shown up at all. Okay, so this is a huge stretch. So what we need to do now is to somehow make this work. Now this used to be apparently a huge deal, a huge problem. I've never had to do this before, as in I've never had a problem with this because I wasn't working with pipes that much. But a lot of people were complaining about this. So in the bonus tools thing, this is the exact same setting here, right? Notice that the modeling got a bunch of stuff as well. I actually updated these tools the other day, and they have some new things, which is pretty cool. I can delete the bash history. Wow, you can. Wow, that's pretty nice. Okay, never mind. Getting off topic here. So let's go ahead and auto unwrap UVs. So in our case, we've got our UVs, but we need to create a pipe tube contour. And that is exactly why this is important, because this allows us to create a pipe UV without compromising stuff. So let me enter the tool and just close this. So I'm going to select this mesh, and I'm going to continue. Okay, so now it's going to create a new set. So we need to define a single edge loop along the pipe. So if I go ahead and grab this, there's an edge loop, right? So I'm going to add the loop, and this is my border. And I'm going to continue. Now this created a pipe, and it didn't actually distort our objects that much. As you can see here, we can actually see everything very well. Now obviously I can go ahead and unfold this, but this will create problems. So ideally you want to keep this as it is. Although you do have problems, you can lay this out correctly, I believe. And you can see the numbers. This is not as bad as the other one, right? So you do get some kind of you do get better results with this. All right. Obviously, maybe if I used another curve, it would have been better. So I could always try to do that. And I did lose my material, which is unfortunate. Where's my material? Where's my picture? Where'd I go with the picture? I think I just disabled my picture, did I? Where'd it go? I do have a picture. So my material just broke for some reason. But whatever. Doesn't matter. My point is that you have this thing specifically for unfolding these UVs over here. And if we go ahead and take a look, yes. And by the way, notice that these tools, by the way, have been overviewed by a channel called Maya. And I recommend you go ahead and check this guy out, because he's the lead technical artist for Maya, a lead technical designer, sorry, for Maya. So he's got, like, he's the guy who's responsible for all these tools, and he's going to explain it way better than me. And I'm pretty sure I'm missing something here, because it's not supposed to look like that. All right. Especially for this pipe. Maybe if I find a better border, I'm gonna have an easier time. But this is definitely not something that is supposed to be working this way. Let's go ahead and try another crack at this. So if I go ahead and select this mesh, this edge loop, let's see what happens then. And this loop. Oh God, no. Add this loop. All right, okay. So you basically need a whole. My bad. You need a whole loop. It was my bad. So you need to select the whole loop. So it's like this and like this. And then if you add this loop, it should be fine. This is gonna cut in between, and then you continue, and this should create a better thing, I believe. These are cuts. So if I go ahead and unfold this now. You got two shells, yeah. So these are, it's kind of overkill in this case. It's already unfolded, by the way, so this is not going to help matters. Especially considering that my U's and all my others are not really that well, not that well off. Yeah, so look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where this is positioned, because like I said, I'm not going to be using you're not going to be trying to tailor to put your object here, right? You're not going to be tailoring your UVs to fit to fit your texture. You're going to be tailoring your texture to fit your UVs, okay? So it's important basically to get them right, to get them done right, so that you don't have a lot of distortion. You don't have a lot of, you see, currently I have no distortion, which is great, which means that I can use this, even though it looks like crap. Currently, I can use this, and there's not a lot of, there's actually very little distortion. Like these checkers are sort of fine. Then again, although it's not aligned properly, I still don't mind that, because I will do the texture afterwards. Now, if I already had the texture, this would have been a problem, because if I had the texture, I need to actually align it. So I have to play around with the with these settings here, and maybe just do a couple of stitches here and there, and just try to sew things up. But in this situation, I really don't care, because this doesn't matter for me. So I'm going to delete all these things, and that's basically, I'm going to leave it here. And I'm going to refer you to a video, which is here. If you go algorithmic, actually YouTube, algorithmic, and they have actually a model prepper. Now this is a little bit old, so from 2015. If we go into where's the Substance Painter? So we got your little tutorial set here, which is Substance in UE4, I believe. No, the beginner bit. Let me just see here. Beginner. There we go. Texturing for beginners. Over here, you've got your fundamentals, right? Now, I recommend you go through all of this, all right, first of all, because you're going to be using Substance. And this guy Wes, he explains it really well, especially since you can basically start from where's the preparation? Okay, painter model preparation. Where is it? So it's part of which setup here? I believe it's part of a Substance Painter tutorial here. Is it? Playlists. Look, you'll find it, okay? Where'd it go? Where's the damn thing? Okay. Okay. I believe I can't find it. It has to be somewhere here. Model. Oh, there it is. It's just bottom further down, right? So watch these 3 videos. He explains it very well. Actually, yeah, tangents and binormals. I forgot to talk about tangents and binormals. Let me just explain to you what these are, so that you can work with this, so you can understand whenever someone talks about tangents and binormals. I just want to show you what tangents and binormals are. Let's go over here and grab my EP curve tool, and I have a particular curve, and I don't want to have it isolated. Okay, so here's my curve, and I'm going to isolate my curve. And as you can see here, if we actually go ahead and take a look here closer, Substance Painter. So by the way, like I said, watch these videos here. Okay, he explains it very well at how, what textile density is, how it all works out, how it all connects to Substance Painter. I'm going to go over this later as well, but I'm nearly not as proficient as Wes is, nor am I probably as good at explaining stuff as he is. So I really do recommend you guys check this out if you have any trouble understanding what the idea with UV mapping is. Okay, but I'm gonna just finish this off with a little overview, okay, in this video. But before that, I just wanted to show you what a tangent is. So if I go ahead and create another curve on this point, right? So this is another curve. So this is a tangent, right? This is a tangent, and it is obviously a vector, right? So it points this way. Out of this tangent, now this is obviously not a real tangent, because I really don't know, I'm not going to grab a tangent off of this. What I'm saying is that this is a tangent vector, right? It basically connects at one point, what straight line you need to take to connect to a particular curve. Out of this, you can actually go ahead and calculate the normal. So this would be the normal. The normal that always points towards the towards the object. So essentially towards this, like the concave, the cavity of your rotation. Now here's the kicker. Once you have these two, essentially what you do is you get the cross product of these. So like the dot product is going to give you the angle between them, and the cross product is going to give you a new vector, which is the binormal, which is going to be pointing, so you've got these pointing this way, and the binormal will be pointing that way, most likely, I believe, like so. Well, if I go into my tool, it'll be pointing this way. Where is it? Where'd it go? Okay. I need to find it now. Where's my curve? Oh, I did not create it? Okay, let's do this again. So if I just activate my thingy and I go ahead, so it will be something like, oh, okay, it will be something like this. This is like your cross product, okay, of your of these two vectors. Basically, basically this creates a local coordinate system for every point on your UVs. So if you've got your UVs over here, for crying out loud, pop out. So if you got your UVs over here, right, and I'm just gonna delete these, we don't need them anymore. If you've got your UVs over here and you take a look at every point, you need to know which how it is oriented. Now you might say, well, this is a cube, there's not much, you know, there's, what's the big deal here? Yeah, it is a cube, but it's also, how am I gonna, why am I stuck on this? Oh yeah, that's because I'm in the model view. But it's also, whenever you import or export stuff, it needs to have its own tangent space. Unreal Engine and Substance, they use McT tangent space, which is the same basically. They use a sync type of they like whatever you see in Painter is going to be working in Unreal. Okay, so you don't need to calculate tangents and binomials here. Painter will do it for you. Well, what's important to understand here is the fact that without those, you're gonna have some really weird views on your normal maps, and like some deformations will be looking strange. Not deformations, but your textures might get warped, or they won't be orienting. They will be oriented on the right way, but you have a slope. When you have something that is going down, let's say a bevel, right? You've grabbed this object here. I'm gonna turn this into wood, it's starting to get annoying, this white thing. So if I go ahead and bevel this, I believe there was a shortcut to bevel, but maybe not. So if I bevel this and I increase the segments here, what basically is happening, by the way, notice that my UVs get destroyed immediately. My UVs just got destroyed because you need to do this after you're done modeling, okay? There's very few operations you can perform and respect the UVs. Like, for example, that's why when you see in the tool settings, sometimes you have respect UVs. But because you're adding divisions here, and essentially you just removed an edge, it's very hard to figure out, you know, well, okay, so what happens here? Now, obviously, you can have like different depths, like concave, like say this. Imagine I've just created this, okay? Now, I don't need any mirroring and all this jazz, but I've just done a modification. I've completely ruined my normal map. Sorry, UV map. Now, that being said, if I were to have this edge over here, okay, and let's say I bevel this as well. Let's say I just use like 2 segments, right? So in reality, if remember these tangents, right? So this is the same thing happening here. This vertex right here will have a, can I just focus on it? This vertex right here will have a tangent going this way, okay? The normal will be going this way. The binormal will be going, I believe, this way or this way. I'm not too sure which way it's, how exactly it's calculated. But I believe you can actually see them if you go and go to show, no, a window, sorry. Where was this now? Mesh display. I think you can grab the averages, normal angles. You can view them. No. There we go. We can display these attributes. Let me just see here. No, it's not here. somewhere around here. I have to find it now. Look, it's a side note. But what I wanted to say is the fact that without these calculations, this slope will look very ugly. I mean, a lot uglier than this in your engine. You might find it that it looks correct and awesome in Maya, but when you do this, if you don't have your space calculated properly, you're gonna run into a problem. All right. Now this video has gone long enough, and my voice is getting tired. I'm starting to stutter. So I think that's enough of this. Look, the UV editor is just like the dirty child of modeling and animating and texturing. It's like the in-between. Without it, you can't do anything, but really nobody wants to bother with it. So, you know, if there's the easier way, the easiest approach you can take and make it work, take it, okay? You can always refine your UVs later, although it's preferable you have them ready. Because like I said, there's very few things that respect your UVs and preserve them. So that's what you want. Whenever you see preserve UVs, anytime you create, you have a modification of an object as after you've already created the UVs, you always want to have preserve UVs on, unless you start adding different things, you know, like beveling, for example, where it completely changes the geometry. Okay, ooh. By the way, in my case, it was bad because it was on a seam. If I beveled somewhere where it wasn't a seam, it would have been fine. So there's that. All right, guys. So check out the Substance Painter. Check this, especially these 3 videos. Okay, so UV mapping and textile density. Material setup, you don't really need this. I mean, I'll show you what it is, but just check this out. Look, if you got time, watch the whole thing, by all means, right? But at least watch this first video so that you understand what the whole story is and how it all meshes in with Painter. Obviously, you need to have Painter for this if you want to actually try this out, okay? So that's it, guys. Ideally, the final words here are, because this is like, we're done with UVs. I'm not going to bother with UVs anymore because it's more of a trial and error until you figure out what's your best approach. It's not like there's something. It's not like there's a recipe for UV mapping. All right, it's more like it's an art style. Okay, so you UV map the way you think you need to UV map. It's very circumstantial. You know, if you have something with ears, obviously you don't need the ears to be taking up all of your UV space, because, you know, especially also whenever you're doing your UV mapping, consider how often the camera will see it, right? I mean, if the player's not going to see something like a toenail, there's no need to, you know, go nuts on the toenail, right? You probably don't even need to texture the damn thing if your character wears shoes. So you need to you just need to be very careful with these things, and think ahead of time. What are you going to do? Because this isn't just for, like, a lot of the workflow in Maya is done for animation and video rendering, but in our case, we're making stuff for a game. So you need to consider the fact that, look, if let's say you're doing an RTS game, right? A top-down RTS game, or a turn-based game, or an RPG, or an adventure game, or anything that has a static camera. This automatically gives you massive advantages over someone who has a freeform camera. All right, so if you have something like Devil May Cry, where every aspect of the character will be seen, you need to really have your character on point. But if you got a guy who, like, if your character will only be seen from the top ever, even when dying, he just disappears, for example, doesn't even leave a corpse. Like, he evaporates. Let's say he plays a ghost, which is an easy thing to animate, easy thing to model, easy thing to texture, even an easy thing to UV. And as a ghost, he just evaporates. And if he's a ghost in a humanoid form, whenever he dies, you don't even need to have polygons on the bottom of his feet, because nobody's going to see anything on the bottom of his feet. He's never going to have his feet pointing upwards to the camera, right? But then obviously this is a little bit dramatic because, you know, you're just saving like 5 or 10 polygons, and just, you know, eliminating the ability to have something that shows his feet, like if he does a somersault or a backflip or something like that. Anyway, this is kind of a tangent and a binormal. See that? But make sure whenever you're UVing, you just have an idea of what you're trying to achieve. Don't just UV stuff just for the heck of it. And also, don't UV with a texture. You always UV with the checkerboard, so that you just see how a texture would look like, so that if you have something wrapping, it doesn't wrap itself like shit. Don't try to conform, very important, don't try to conform your UVs to a texture, because you can always change the texture, but it's very annoying to change the UVs because you got to start most of the time from scratch if you fuck it up. All right. Okay, guys, that's it for me. I'll see you in the next video when we actually go back into our wormy ball and animate our, just first of all, UV our worm. Then we're going to bind the mesh to the skeleton. Then we're going to paint the skins, paint the weights, right? We're going to go through the whole process, paint the weights. Then we're going to animate it, bake the animation, export. Well, before we do that, actually, we're going to just export the model, right? And then we're going to bake the animation, export the animation, and then we're going to go straight into Unreal. That will be done with Maya. There's not a lot of videos left, only 2 or 3. So stay sharp, all right? I'll see you next time when we go back into work and finish with this whole Maya stuff. All right, bye bye.